The second day on the trails of Greyton would be a shorter one, but after Wednesday's Stage 3, the teams knew they would be in for another tough day. The mix between rugged trails on the slopes and the foothills of the Sonnerin Mountains and rough dual track through the Overberg wheatfields battered bodies and bikes. There were plenty of beautiful sights too, though, for those with the time or presence of mind to raise their eyes from the trails. The moment for scenic appreciation just had to be well timed. In the CM.com women's race, Stage 3 saw a more sedate start than the previous two marathon stages. The gravel road opening kilometres nullified the opportunities for aggressive riding. It was only when the climbing began that the group began to thin. Private Client Holdings' Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen decided to take the bull by the horns and launched a long-range solo break. Having started the day well down on the general classification, the race leaders were content to let them build a significant advantage. Despite that, when the 91 Songo Specialized and Faces Roller teams accelerated, they closed the gap to the Private Client Holdings team with ease. The orange and red jersey wearers then dropped the early leaders to fight it out for stage victory. Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss outmaneuvered Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten, then sprinted to their first Absa Cape Epic win as a team. They were joined on the podium by 91 Songo Specialized and Private Client Holdings.
But just a great day out. I think Hayley and I always knew we were building into the week. We did the same last year and Hayley crashed on day 3, so at least we finished stage 3. And it's just a great ride. It was great riding with the girls, and I think it's pretty cool that you had 2 all South African teams in the top 3 ladies.
Lill and Strauss's stage win moved them up into second overall. Gomez-Villafan and Batten maintained their general classification lead in the CM.com women's race, while BMC Mountain Bike Racing and Simtech ZA slid down the standings. In the men's race, the gravel roads had less of a nullification effect than in the women's race, especially with Speed Company Racing driving up the pace. The German team managed to force a split, taking Mbuko Type Dev and Santa Cruz with them. Behind, Canyon Northwave and Buff Megamo 2 had moments of stress with punctures. But Georg Egger and Lucas Baum charged on, unaware of the pain they were inflicting behind them. Maxime Marot and Keegan Swenson were unable to hang on with Speed Company Racing, but Toyota 91 Specialized and Canyon Northwave powered through the second half of the day. They could not catch Egger and Baum, however. Speed Company Racing secured a hard-earned stage win. Toyota 91 Specialized Matt Beers and Chris Blevin claimed second, and Canyon Northwave's Andreas Seewald and Martin Storsek fought back to limit their losses, finishing third.
Yeah, the Speed Company guys rode really well, and they created that gap and just kept it there. I think it was easier to ride alone actually than in a bunch, but yeah, we've got many more days.
Behind the stage podium placing, Scott Stram and Buff Megabo lost time. This allowed Speed Company Racing to power into second overall behind Canyon Northwave. Toyota 91 Specialized held third. Stage 4 had less opportunities to make up time for Andreas Seewald and Martin Stosek's rivals. The 82-kilometre stage, which looped through the Greyton region, featured 1,650 metres of climbing. Starting in Elandskloof, gravel roads led to the dual tracks into the Sonnerin Mountains above Genadendal. The historic Moravian mission station served as the day's first water point before the single track started with rocky horror. Having passed through Greyton village, single tracks recommenced with Barkenskorp, a spectacular 9-kilometre long trail with climb, traverse and descent. In the final phases of the stage, the ascent to UFO and the single track descent which followed provided the last opportunities for decisive moves. An undulating run into Elandskloof brought the day's racing to a close, capping 2 fantastic days in the Overberg. The shorter stage played into the hands of the defensive plans of the race leaders. Martin Storsek and Andreas Seewald knew they just had to shadow their rivals.
I think we again try nothing crazy, just defend the jersey, and in the last long climb we see what happens.
Yeah, well, yesterday stage win, incredible feeling. Today no big difference. We are not in the leader jersey yet, but we want to keep the time difference as little as possible to the leaders. And today we want to stay safe, and if there's one opportunity to attack, we try to do that.
With Georg Egger and his Speed Company Racing partner Lucas Baum feeling good and in the mood to attack, the rest of the elite men's field would have to be weary. which is probably why the Canyon Northwave men made it their mission to lead the group out of Elandskloof. The race leaders did not simply block the road, however, they kept the tempo high too. They were clearly as eager as the men in second on the general classification to get the stage done and dusted. Among the teams in the CM.com women's race, the pre-stage routines were followed. Warming up on rollers and double-checking the route to identify the key points were the primary concerns for the top teams.
We've got quite a few climbs and some really nice single track. I think Greyton is showing off today with all the trails. So we know them quite well, so we'll try and play it tactically again and into our strengths, but looking forward to the day.
This morning for sure was like one of those first mornings where I feel like, okay, this is epic again. I asked Pauline if she's ever felt like this, and she said no way, she's never woken up feeling this way. So yeah, you definitely feel the past couple of days in the body and feel as if we're lacking a lot of sleep, but everybody probably feels the same, and we carry on.
A lack of sleep is part of the Absa Cape Epic. The riders who adapt to the grueling conditions on and off the bike best will emerge victorious. Despite having struggled the previous day, de Groot and Pauline Ferrand-Prevot were looking as ready as any of their rivals. Though it would take a mammoth effort to unseat 91 Songo specialised Sofia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten. The overcast conditions and cool temperatures did nothing to diminish the intensity of the racing. When the men's field hit the open roads which followed the Sonderend River from Elandskloof towards Greyton, the pace increased to over 40 kilometres an hour. The peloton flew through the opening 10 kilometres in record time, the dust they kicked up only limited by the wet road surfaces. Climbing through the outskirts of Genadendal, the speed hardly dipped, and soon the bunch was stretched out into a tattered string of individual riders. This allowed Speed Company Racing, Canyon Northwave, Toyota 91 Specialized and Imbuco Type Dev to slip off the front once more. Nino Schurter, Henri Frischnecht and Yuri Ragnoli were unable to follow as they waited for Lars Forster. Nor was the Bull Zeus Hubo, had to bomb a punctured tyre. The leaders drove on, knowing that the general classification race would again play out on the trails. And there could be no sympathy for the ill or the unlucky. There was an Absa Cape Epic to be won. In the chase group, Toyota 91 Specialized 2 were having their best days since the prologue. Cameron Mason had been struggling on the long and rough stages, but gradually the cyclocross star was finding his marathon mountain bike legs, though his focus still wavered from time to time. Mason was not the only rider finding the Greyton single tracks demanding. The world's best stage races were spread across kilometres of the course. Having started so well, a puncture for Imbuco Type Dev put them out of contention. As such, they missed the move, which saw Speed Company Racing drive away from Canyon Northwave and Toyota 91 Specialized. Having given Gael Gaga and Lucas Baum too much leeway the day before, Andreas Sewald, Martin Stosek, Matt Beers and Chris Blevin were not going to make the same mistake again. They fought to keep the leaders within sight. Not far behind, Toyota 91 Specialized and Canyon Northwave had the safety net of their support teams. Speed Company Racing were fighting for every metre and eking out each second they could claw away from the chasers. Yet the gap refused to balloon out, remaining at 36 seconds as they passed through Waterpoint 2. Sewald, Stosek, Beers and Blevins were keeping a tight leash on Egger and Baum. But they knew the second half of the stage would be decisive. The first part had simply been the appetizer. Refueled and with Tristan Norquier and Cameron Mason and Christian Heineck in tow, they refreshed their pursuit. Behind, the battle for the top 10 was playing out between Santa Cruz, Team Bulls, Trekvoorde and the William Pirelli team of Fabian Ravensteiner and Wout Allemann. As had been the case on Stage 3, the gravel road dominated the opening kilometres of Stage 4, negating the attacking instincts of the top teams in the CM.com women's race. Rather than burn matches pulling the group along at a faster pace, they were content to ride tempo, ticking off kilometres leading towards terrain more suited for aggressive racing. River crossings 10 kilometres into the day certainly did not count as potential opportunities to attack, though the depth and the icy cold temperature of the stream, which had run straight out of the Sonderen Mountains following the overnight downpour, certainly got the blood racing. It would take more than wet feet to split the group, however. With the cheers of the school children of Genadendal ringing in their ears, the elite women turned off the broad gravel road and made their first excursion into the foothills of the mountains. When the trails began to ascend, Pauline Ferrand-Prevot immediately came to the fore. The French star appears to be on a rotation of alternating strong and less strong days. Stage 4, like the prologue and Stage 2, was a good day for BMC MTB racing. The combination of Ferrand-Prevot's firepower and the Genadendal single tracks soon thinned out the group to the race's main protagonists. By the time they passed back through the mission station, only 91 Songo Specialized, Faces Roller, Simtech ZA and Private Client Holdings remained with the BMC MTB team. Having fought their way to the front, the Faces Roller team of Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss then took control of the pace setting in the single tracks. Just when the pace started to rise, Amy Wakefield's ability to contest the stage was compromised. The Simtech ZA rider punctured and never made it back to the lead group. Her partner Ariane Luthi was initially unaware of Wakefield's issues, but once she realised, the Swiss rider dropped back to the South African. This left Mariska Strauss, Candice Lill, Sophia Gomez-Villafan, Hayley Batten, Pauline Ferrand-Prevot, Robyn de Groot, Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen at the front of the race. The stage winners would surely come from this group. At the sharp end of the men's race, the Speed Company racing team continued to do their best to extend their lead. But with the chase group swelling behind, the pace in pursuit never relented. Baf Megamo's Hans Becking and Jose Diaz, along with the Scott Calabandida team of Sergio Manticon Gutierrez and Francesc Guerra Carretero, had joined the second group on the trail. The group was still being driven on by Matt Beers of Toyota 91 Specialized. Chris Blevin, André Seewald and Martin Stosek were sandwiched between Beers and the new arrivals. Looking back down the switchbacks, Egger and Baum could see their lead evaporating. Though not all the teams guiding their way up the Barkenskop single-track climb would be able to make it back to the front of the race. Yet at the Absa Cape Epic, even top 20 results are fiercely contested, so every team fought on, racing to their limits. As the speed increased in the chase group, Scott Calabandida began to slip back. Beers, Blevin, Seewald, Stosek and Becking charged on, chasing Egger and Baum through the technical trails, knowing that if Speed Company Racing could slip out of sight again, they could be gone for good. With that in mind, Toyota 91 Specialized took added risks on the Barkenskop descent, distancing Canyon Northwave. On the valley floor between the high points of the Barkenskop and UFO climbs, the leading three teams found themselves in team versus team time trials, racing to close the gaps and bring the race back together, or racing to avoid that happening. Despite their best efforts, Speed Company Racing were being reeled in. Before the road could ramp up for the day's final climb, the group came together, setting up a dramatic finale. Concrete strips usually indicate that a mountain road is exceptionally steep, which is the case for parts of UFO, though it ramps up to extreme gradients and then slacks off again to a more manageable pitch. Despite these changes in gradient, the group remained resolutely together, knowing that a stage victory and potentially time for the general classification battle was at stake. The group summited together and then set off on the technical descent along a treacherous shale single track. Having got to the front, Martin Stosek controlled the pace. But once the trail widened to a dual track, it descended into a free-for-all, and the race was once again on the verge of being blown open. Fortune favoured the brave, yet all were equal to the task. When the road levelled out, a sprint finish was inevitable. Chris Blevins prepared Matt Beers' drivetrain for the assault of Watts. Knowing that they possessed the slowest sprints in the group, Beers and Andreas Seewald engineered a split. This gave the Toyota 91 Specialized and Canyon Northwave teams an advantage, as only Blevins and Stosek would have to contest the sprint against both Speed Company racing riders. In the final 500 metres, Blevins kicked. The short course world champion showed his rivals a clean pair of heels, leaving Georg Egger and Lucas Baum and Stosek in his dust. Matt Beers crossed the finish line first, was joined by Andreas Seewald and watched as Blevins powered around the final bend and home to victory. It was a well-worked move which proved the tactical nous of the Toyota 91 Specialized men. The pair were understandably delighted with their effort and were joined on the podium by Canyon Northwave and Speed Company Racing, who shared wry smiles at being outfoxed. Matt Beers and Chris Blevin's stage win was completed in 3 hours 19 minutes and 22 seconds, 2 seconds faster than Andreas Seewald and Martin Stosek. Georg Egger and Lucas Baum were 6 seconds further adrift. Behind them, Trek Voda and Toyota 91 Specialized 2 had their best days of the race, finishing 5th and 8th respectively. Canyon Northwave's 6-second edition takes their lead over Speed Company Racing to 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Toyota 91 Specialized remained third at 6:50. Ibuko Type Dev in 9th remained the best placed Absa African jersey team.
I wish we could, say we planned that exactly like it happened, but we didn't. I was talking to Matt about maybe him having the first jump and me holding back and then jumping on the line. But then he got away with Seewald, and there was this little hesitation. And I was like, oh man, please drive it. And then they looked at each other and did. Stosek looked at me, and I think he kind of gave me the nod to use my kick and try to beat the Speed Company guy. So yeah, it was nice, always nice when you ease up for a second before a sprint like that. And my legs came back to me, and then I had the kick at the end.
Yeah, today was a bit of strange stage. We had a gap in the beginning and tried to go solo, but the others catched us, and in the end it was like a bit of a strange situation. 2 riders in the front from Specialized and Canyon, and we are in the back with one of each other team. And it was difficult for us to do a real tactic, because Christopher is also super strong in the sprint, and he closed every gap we tried to open, so it was quite difficult in the end.
Having stretched the lead group to breaking point, Pauline, Ferrand-Prevot and Robyn Groot escaped off the front when the climbing began once more. Behind, Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss were marshalling the chase, until Lill punctured. The pinch flat created a difficult plugged hole in the sidewall of the South African's tyre, costing her agonising minutes. While Faces Roller struggled to repair their puncture, BMC MTB Racing ascended away, extending their advantage all the while over the remaining teams in the chasing group. In so doing, Ferrand-Prevot and de Groot proved again that when they're on fire, they are the strongest climbing team in the CM.com women's race. Even the infamous UFO climb was no match for the pair's prowess. The nature of the pursuit split the chasers. Private Client Holdings were unable to stick with 91 Songo Specialized on UFO. Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Haley Batten rode the climb conservatively, then pinned their ears back for the descent to the finish. Faces Roller were racing to save their general classification position, knowing they were ceding time to BMC MTB. 91 Songo Specialized pursuit was less frenetic. For the third time in 5 days at the 2022 Absa Cape Epic, Pauline, Ferrand-Prevot and Robyn Groot raced to stage victory and into second position overall. Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Haley Batten crossed the line in second, and Private Client Holdings completed the podium. It took Pauline, Ferrand-Prevot and Robyn Groot 4 hours, 3 minutes and 28 seconds to complete their victory. 1 minute and 12 seconds ahead of Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Haley Batten. Marie Rabi and Haley Preen were a further 4 minutes and 47 seconds back. Despite conceding time to the stage winners, 91 Songo Specialized overall advantage expanded from 10 minutes over Faces Roller to 11 minutes and 6 seconds over BMC MTB Racing. Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss slipped back behind Ferrand-Prevot and de Groot on the general classification, though the gap between second and third is 4 minutes and 36 seconds.
Yeah, that was number 3, and I guess it's for me it's just very special to come here. 5 weeks ago I wasn't doing Epic, I wasn't riding. Such a privilege to share this with Pauline, and yeah, it's my last Epic, so to have these stage wins is just a cherry on the top. I couldn't have dreamt of these kinds of days.
3 days to go. We're comfortable. Obviously, you can never be relaxed in this race, but yeah, I mean we're in the orange, and Val de Vie is getting closer and closer.
Beyond the elite men's and women's categories, the accumulated fatigue of the race was starting to take its toll. But the top campaigners in the Grand Masters, NTT Masters and mixed categories are experienced racers, conditioned to survive the Absa Cape Epic.
Yeah, day 4, day 5 now, 4th stage. You feel the bones, you feel the body, you feel everything. Maybe it's the age, I don't know, not sure. But yeah, the first days were quite hard. Yesterday a bit more easy, and today it's again a lot of single tracks, so let's see. I think we're going to enjoy it again.
If enjoying the day was the only target, Karl Platz certainly achieved that, especially as the 5-time Absa Cape Epic winner's idea of fun is going fast. Fortunately, in the highly competitive A-Batch start group, that feeling is shared. So the NTT Masters, Grand Masters and mixed category leaders were in good company all day. In lulls between the action, they even found time for a chat. Also in the group were the top Exaro jersey teams, soldiering their way through the race. Having less experience in dealing with all the challenges the untamed African mountain bike presents, they were battling through, learning on the trails, soaking up the knowledge of the teams around them to help with pacing, nutritional strategies and how to overcome mid-race mechanicals. The category leaders all had successful days on the trails, and none of the jerseys changed hands. The Songa 91 Epic legends Karl Platt and Christoph Sauser strengthened their grip on the NTT Masters category. But the Grand Masters and mixed categories had new stage winners. Not that placing third on the stage cost Bart Brentjens and Abra Azevedo much of their 1.5 hour buffer. The Manny Heymans and Genevieve Weber's advantage is now a slender 3 minutes and 20 seconds over CBZ Asphaltos. In the Exaro jersey race, FNB Changer Life's Nhlanhla Tembu and Luvuyo Siasi moved into second ahead of the Exaro Academy 2 team, but remained 54 minutes behind leaders Hlalisani Ndebele and Tlotlo Selala. After the mid-race respite of a shorter day, Stage 5 is another ultra-marathon test. The route takes in a massive 115 kilometers as it traverses back across the mountains from the Overberg into the Boerland winelands. Starting in Elandskloof, the stage heads straight up Rusty Gate, descends towards the Theewaterskloof Dam and then tackles Franschhoek Pass. Technical trails on the banks of the Berg River Dam and through Old Bethlehem Farm lead the race to Helshoogte Pass and Botmaskop. Upon reaching the third summit, the teams will have conquered 2,400 meters of climbing. The final 5 kilometers are downhill, first on the old Stellenbosch World Cup downhill course and then along the trails which trace the banks of the Eerste River to the Kutsenberg sports fields.